Good afternoon, it's Dave at ATI Watch Reviews. Please smash that like button and please hit that subscribe button for more awesome watch content. Little wristwatch check. Oh yeah, this is probably one of the most exquisite homages that you can get on AliExpress, and for the price it is simply insane. This is the 2063, the AD2063 from Addiesdive, only in 38mm with a beige dial, blue GMT hand, you can just see it hidden away there, with the all stainless steel look. Is absolutely beautiful, and it's only 38mm, it's well below 100 GBP, it is absolutely exquisite, and it's for all wrist sizes. It fits a lot bigger than 38, it fits more like a 39-40mm watch because of the supporting case, but it is an absolute stunner. But today's video is a comparison of two watches, two very popular watches in the homage niche on AliExpress, and they are both two very good options. They are priced well below 100 GBP each. Been wanting to do a comparison of them recently because I've wore the Pagani on the left. I've wore that a lot for the past year because it is such an all-around amazing watch, and Addiesdive have released a smaller version of it that I thought that a more wrist-friendly version of it that I thought I would give an overview of because they are very popular watches. So on the left is 1693. This is a 42mm watch, automatic DG 5833 movement by Minju, fully solid stainless steel construction, screw down crown, solid case back, fully solid bracelet and clasp with 3 micro adjusts, with a domed sapphire crystal, heavily domed, and also a Cyclops obviously, with a GMT functionality. Versus, this is about, I think it's about 60 to 70 quid plus VAT if you're in Britain. So I'll probably call it about 75, 80 quid, 80 odd quid you can get it for. Maybe you can get it cheaper in a deal coming up. And on my right is a kind of smaller brother to it, but from Addiesdive, not Pagani design. And this one has, interestingly, the snowflake hands as opposed to the Mercedes hands, because that looks like the Mercedes emblem. They call it the Mercedes style hands. This is the snowflake version. Quartz, Ronda quartz movement, so highly accurate, but it is a quartz. GMT functionality, no Cyclops, still have the dome crystal. Not as domed, but you still have a domed crystal. Obviously, very similar stainless steel bezel and construction. This one is only the 39mm, so it is a lot smaller on the wrist. I'll talk about the sizing in a minute. Going down to, again, it's milled swing arms. It's still a decent construction for the clasp. It's a little bit more tinny, I think, than the Pagani. But it is signed. They have signed it, which is nice. No dive extension. I mean, just visually, you can immediately see that the Pagani is the much bigger watch. Even though it's only 3mm bigger, it is a lot bigger and it's a lot heavier. Let's get into the first comparison, which is sizing. So, of the Pagani 1693, bezel diameter is 42.3, so just over 42. A lug to lug of 49.6, so just under 50mm lug to lug. An overall diameter of 45.6, including the crown, and it's quite thick at 14.2. So the top of the dome, excluding the Cyclops, 14.2mm thick. And an end link to end link of 54mm. So it's quite big overall. Versus the Addiesdive that has a bezel diameter of 39.6. An overall diameter of 42.3 with the crown. So still a lot smaller because the other one was 40, 45 and a bit. A lug to lug of 48.4 an end-link to end-link of 47.8, so smaller still, and a thickness of 12.3, so a lot thinner from the 14 of the Pagani. So for sizing purposes, it's a horses for courses one. Do you want the bigger one that's more bulky, that is also heavier, that has a bigger case, bigger thickness, bigger everything, 14 versus 12 mil versus 42 or 45 overall versus 42, 39 diameter versus 42 diameter. For me, I prefer the bigger size. So for me, the winner is the Pagani, but I know a lot of people will definitely prefer the Addiesdive. So maybe I should give it it's just a horses for courses one, that. I'm going to give it a draw, but my personal preference is the bigger one, absolutely. In terms of sizing, I think you need, on the Pagani, I think you need at least 6.5 inch wrists to pull it off, because it is a big watch. It fits more like a 43 because of the thickness and the case. That being said, they're not both thin watches, really. But the thickness is found in the crystal, if you know what I'm saying. But the Pagani one has more of a prominence on the crystal, probably about another 0.5 mil projection as opposed to the projection on the Addiesdive. So interestingly, what I'm saying is, even though they are 14 mil, you think, oh, it's well too thick for me. It doesn't fit like a 14 mil watch. It is heavy, but it doesn't fit like a 14 mil watch. It fits more like a 12.5 mil watch, basically. And this one feels nice and slim. So I would say that don't be put off by the 14 mil on the Pagani. It's totally fine, because that it's not a true thickness. It's including the sapphire crystal. Now let's get them weighed. So the Pagani is 170 grams. I don't think I've taken any links out, so that will be true. So that's 170 grams. It is on the heavier side. And the Addiesdive is only 133, 134 grams. So it's significantly lighter. The Addiesdive on my right is a lot lighter. It's around 40 grams lighter, because I've not took any links out of either. And another thing that I'll just point out, look at the thickness of the links on the Pagani. They're about 3.5 mil thick. On the Addiesdive, they're a normal size, a lot thinner. So the Pagani is a lot heavier, it's 40 grams heavier approximately, bulkier and thicker, but I prefer that, and it's 42 mil versus 39 mil. And it's got bigger end link to end link, lug to lug, all those measurements are bigger. But don't be put off by it. As I've said, it's still very comfortable as an all-day wear. Both watches are very comfortable. Let's talk about the crystals. The Pagani has a very, very strong projection, very thick sapphire domed crystal. Reflections are pretty strong, but they're not that bad. Versus the Addiesdive crystal, which is only a mineral crystal. It is domed, the projection is nowhere near as much. They're both quite a nice crystal. They're both too reflective, in my opinion. They need a bit of AR coating. I prefer, I'll be honest, I prefer the sapphire crystal on this one. I think the reflections are not as bad. There's not as much distortion. On the outer rim of the Addiesdive, there's more distortion there with the way that they've done the crystal versus the Pagani, which is better in my opinion. There's less distortion on the edges where you see the indices. So I'm going to give the winner, not just on the actual material, although it is a better material, but I'm going to give the winner to Pagani on this one. For the crystals, it's Pagani. Right. Let's talk about dial and presentation. Well, as you can see, they're both Homage in the same retro luxury watch that I'm not going to mention here, but they're both Homage in a luxury watch that costs thousands and thousands of pounds. This is obviously a much cheaper AliExpress version of them, basically. The Pagani has a more neutral, more kind of autumn look to the Fotina, more browny tan to give the retro look on the indices and on the Mercedes hands, versus a more punchy, more vibrant, and more, it has a bit of a green hue to it, a little bit of a green hue, more so on the indices and hands, and it's also got snowflake hands, than the Pagani that is more neutral. Personally, it's easier to see this one, the Addiesdive, but I prefer the more neutral, conservative looks of the Pagani. But that's a horses for courses one. You know, some people, can you see how it's just a little bit greeny for me? I prefer the look of the indices and stuff of the Pagani. I also prefer, but this is just a personal preference really, I prefer the Mercedes style hands of the Pagani than I do the snowflake. But that is a horses for courses. They both look very good. On out of 10, I would say for looks, I'd give the Pagani a 7.5 to an 8, and I'd give the Addiesdive a 7. So, when it comes to branding, they're both signed, everything's signed. You've got the logo, crest logo on the dial, signed crown, and signed clasp, and signed case back. Everything is signed on the Pagani. They always do that really well. It's not childish like some brands. The crest logo, shield if you will, looks perfectly fine. I really like what Pagani do with the branding. Addiesdive has a bit more, not as universal. They've got a larger style, more sporty style kind of look to the logo and branding, but they have signed the crown as well, which is good, because sometimes on the really cheap ones you don't see that. And they've also signed the clasp, because sometimes they don't, and they've kept it all in keeping. That is pretty good. Now, but I know that most people are probably going to prefer the more conservative design of just the shield logo thing that Pagani does. But I want to give it a draw because they have branded everything. They both have. And the case back as well, sorry, on the Addiesdive is nicely logoed. So I'm going to give that one a draw. Now then, let's talk quickly about water resistance. They are both 20 bar or 200 meter water resist, so that is an easy draw. Now obviously I don't have the capabilities to actually test out the functionality, you know, to check. I've not been diving with either of these things. I have been swimming with the Pagani though. I've been swimming with the Pagani and it's been totally fine. One thing I've noticed, so on the crown, I do prefer, and this is something I've just in generally noticed, I prefer crown guards as a general rule, but some people definitely prefer no crown guards because it's a more cleaner look. But I like it where the crown blends in with the case. But some people like the more simpler design of having it like that. Obviously, it's not as protective, you know, as having a crown guard, because that has no protection basically. So I prefer the crown guard, but in terms of the actual feeling, that is a good movement. That is a good action. Feels nice and clean. But this is a cheaper watch. This is 50%. It's about 40% cheaper than the Pagani. So they have to cut corners in some ways. So the crown, I think it feels a bit better on the Pagani. But it's not bad. The movements, this is an interesting one. So the Pagani has the DG5833 automatic 21,000 movement, an automatic workhorse basically, which is more true to the style of the Homage, if you will. And this has a quartz ronda. I think it's the 515. Very accurate. If you want inaccuracy, it's an absolute no-brainer to get the quartz. I think Pagani need to offer, for people that don't care about the automatic version of it, I think they need to offer a version of quartz on most of their watches. It would definitely be popular, and I would probably pick them up. So for accuracy, the winner is obviously going to be the Addiesdive. More true to the original Homage, the winner is the Pagani. The cases, that is more of a slab, it's thicker. Has a bit of a curve there, but not a lot. Addiesdive is slightly more of a curve, so I'll give the winner of the case to Addiesdive. Now onto the bracelets. Now, the Pagani has a thicker bracelet. I've worn it to high heaven, that's why it's scratched. So you have to apologise for that. But the mechanism is fine on the clasp. Push buttons work fine. Simple mechanism with only 3 micro adjusts. I've put it on the middle setting. But for some reason on the Pagani, and this is a bit of a letdown, they have not polished the flanks. I don't know why they've not polished them, but they've not polished them. But you do get screw links, which work really well, which you don't get on the Addiesdive that is just pins. But the pins are very easy to use. I don't really mind pins, and you get the arrows as to where to take them out. The bracelet's fine, really. It is a little bit cheaper, I would say, on the Addiesdive, a little bit. But mechanism is okay. Little bit of resistance there when you're disengaging, but it's fine. How many micro adjusts? You get way more micro adjusts, though. You get 5 versus 3. You should definitely get more on the Pagani. Going with 3 is insufficient, really. It's the minimum. They should give you 4 or 5. But it looks really good, and it has a lot of taper. The overall quality of the bracelet is better on the Pagani, but the finishing is better on the Addiesdive. I like the polished flanks. You get superior micro adjusts, and it's going to be comfier because it's nowhere near as heavy. So, but the quality is better on the Pagani, even though I have wore it to high heaven. And you get screw links. So I'll give it a draw on that because of that. Let's get them both on the wrist. When you get them on the wrist, there's not that much visual difference from there, but they do feel different. This feels a lot lighter. The Addiesdive feels significantly lighter, but they've not done bad on that polishing on the Addiesdive. That looks decent. That clasp looks really nice. But both very comfortable, nothing digs in. The Pagani is very comfortable for a 42mm 170 gram watch. You'll be tough to find any watches that are 170 grams and more that are comfier than that. And this is a very comfortable 130 grams. So you can wear it for all occasions all day long. On the wrist, for me, because I'm used to wearing bigger watches, the 42mm fit seems more natural to me. This feels on the too small side, but that's because I've got 7¼ inch wrists. But it's horses for courses on that one. They both look fine on the wrist. They both feel good. Let's do a loom check. Not amazing off Pagani. The hands are not loomed, or if they are, they're only extremely lightly. I don't think they're loomed, which is poor really. The indices are only very modestly lightly loomed, so quite poor really off Pagani on that. They should definitely have a thicker coating of loom, in my opinion, for what you pay for this watch. Versus the Addiesdive, which has way superior loom, that's twice as good. The indices, if they are loomed, the hands, if they are loomed, are only very lightly loomed. I don't think they are actually, which again, I don't know why, but the indices are much better loomed. So the winner, in my opinion, is clearly Addiesdive, strangely. Addiesdive has the superior loom. So, in conclusion, where do I rate them? Well, if you've got the bigger wrists, I think you want at least 6.5 inch for the Pagani, for the 42, because it's so big and bulky. I think you want, if you've got the bigger wrist, for me, the winner is the Pagani. It's the winner because it's a bigger watch. It's got superior overall construction and bracelet. The only issues for me really with the watch are the loom's crap and the bracelet edges are not polished for some bizarre reason. But other than that, it's in my top 10 AliExpress homages below 100 quid. But if you've got smaller than that wrist, the Addiesdive is a great option. It's also a lot cheaper. It's probably like 30-40% cheaper, the Addiesdive. Both can be picked up. It's got superior loom. It's got obviously the old different snowflake looks on the hands. It's quartz, so it's way more accurate. If you're bothered about that kind of thing, like, you know, changing the time and stuff, it becomes annoying on an automatic watch. It does really. So out of 10, where would I rate them both? I'd give the Pagani probably a 7.5 to an 8, and I'd give the Addiesdive probably a 7. But both, I mean, that takes into account it's relative to the price point. But overall, it's a cracking offer from both of them. They've both done a really good job of capturing the original watch that it's homaging, that's way more expensive. So another great option from both companies. Can't wait to see what more they can produce. It's been Dave. Have a great day.